Dev containers is a very cool feature of Visual Studio Code that allows us to basically run Visual Studio Code server inside the Docker container. And why would you want that in the first place? Well, there are multiple reasons why you can do so. I will leave a link to this documentation page in the description below so you can check it out. There is definitely ways I'm not going to describe in this video that you can find applicable to your use case. In my use case, let's say I want to do this interesting course created by the Primogen for the front-end masters, where he teaches the kind of similarities or differences between the TypeScript, Rust, and Go. But on my daily basis, I don't really write neither Rust nor Go. Another example was when in a couple of previous videos I've been experimenting with doing daily videos, and I was trying to solve advent of code problems every day using Go. Again, I don't use Go daily, so one way is of course to install it on my host machine, but another approach would be to install it in the Docker container. So imagine that we have a workspace specifically created for a particular project. Like with the example of this course from Frontend Masters, we want this project where we have access to the TypeScript, to the Rust, and to Go. In that advent of code problem, I wanted to have an access to Go. And it not only means there is need to have the compiler for the corresponding language, but also workspace will include extensions that I not need normally because I don't use those languages on a daily basis. So I don't want to pollute my development setup with those extensions. Let's say you want to try some extensions that could slow you down if you use the same machine for getting better as a developer and yet doing your normal daily work. And an example of that would be when I started learning and getting accustomed to Vim motions in Visual Studio Code. But Vim motions will slow me down because I'm not used to them. I cannot use them fast and effectively. So I cannot have, and I don't want to have them on my default environment. It would be nice if I have a dedicated workspace when I can experiment with using Vim motions or with languages that I don't normally use. And dev containers are perfect for that. And it's super easy to start with them. In order to start, let's just create some folder. So I will just open Visual Studio Code right here. And the only thing I need is to bring up the command palette. Then I will say dev container, add dev container configuration files. And prior to that, by the way, the only thing I need is to have the Docker desktop installed and running, but it's installed and running all the time on my machine because we use dev containers for, sorry, not dev containers, but we use like Docker and containers for other development purposes. So then we need to pick some image for this workspace we're going to create. Let's say we want to actually tackle that front-end masters course, because this is, for me, that was the case when I discovered this dev containers feature. So I would say node and TypeScript. So it will be develop node-based application in TypeScript, blah, 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 with different stuff. It then requires me to pick the node version. I will take the version 20. And then we can also pick extra features. I will pick Rust. And also I will pick Go. And then I click just OK. I will keep the defaults. And now it says, it kind of reopened Visual Studio Code. And what happened is that it created this folder called .devcontainer with a devcontainer JSON file. So if you want, you can create this .devcontainer folder with a devcontainer JSON file yourself and provide the configuration. But In this case, I decided to ask to use the built-in feature or built-in command to generate this file for me. And then we're gonna do, since I missed its pop-up in the bottom, select dev containers, reopen in container. So now it's reading dev container, starting dev container. So we're gonna see what's going on here. So right now it's building the container and it's done. Probably the image was downloaded before, so now it just built a container. I thought I have deleted all the images I had before this video, but it doesn't matter. So now it's done and complete. So if I open the terminal, now I'm inside the workspace. Now I'm inside this Linux machine running inside the Docker container. So I can check that with uname command, and we see that it's some kind of Linux, and this is clearly like a Mac machine. So which says that right now inside this Visual Studio Code, I am inside the dev container running inside the Docker. So if I go to the extensions, now I see that there are 3 groups of extensions here. There are recommended, which we don't care about. There are local. Local are the ones that I have installed on my default setup of Visual Studio Code. Some of them are still enabled, like dev containers, for example, or better comments. Theme is also enabled, because here it says theme and UI extensions, they are running on your host system, while other extensions, they run inside the container. So a lot of other extensions are not installed. Those that are not related to theme or UI or Visual Studio Code, they were not installed. But instead, a bunch of another extensions been installed that I never normally use and I don't care about, like I said before, but I will need them in order to experiment with what I want to experiment in this workspace. I have crates, ESLint for TypeScript, I have Go, I have Rust Analyzer, so all the tools I need to work with those languages. And also I do have the compilers of the corresponding languages, which I can verify by saying like Go version, which is 121, and then we can do Rust C version, and we have Rust compiler, and there is also Node, it's version 20, etc. So now within this workspace, I can easily open it up and be running and using these tools in no time without polluting my machine with all of those extensions I don't need in my daily basis, only for the experiments. I really recommend you to try to check this really cool thing. As I said, there are other scenarios where you find more maybe suitable to your use case. Like for example, here's we have open Git repository or GitHub PR in the isolated container volume, which means that you can just open the PR you want to play around with in the Docker container without, again, affecting your normal daily routine. So you can create a workspace dedicated to your specific project that you can share with someone. You need to share is this .devcontainer JSON file, and that's it. And then anyone will be able to replicate exactly the same workspace as you are. So check them out, and thank you for watching this video.